Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The flock rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
Appreciate you, Ray. What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. The Ravens just collapsed, absolutely had a meltdown, and lost to the Las Vegas Raiders 26-23. They were up 10 late in the game, and defense collapsed. Offensive line played terrible. We're going to dive into all the negatives and a few of the positives, but there's a lot to talk about, so let's dive into it. We'll start with the obvious. The offensive line struggled pretty much throughout the game. There was a drive coming out of half where they looked pretty good, but man, was Falele getting torched. He sucks. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, there's no other way to put it, and it's not all on him because I don't think he should be starting. I think it was kind of obvious that he's beyond slow to really excel in this offense, and I know Cleveland's probably not a home run option, but I feel like it's a better option than Falele. For some reason, they're trying to get something out of Falele and capitalize on his upside and size, I guess, but it's not working. We're losing games, and you can check the playoff statistics, but teams that start 0-2 are not very likely to make the playoffs, and especially losing games like this to the Raiders. We got a lot of hard games coming up. Cowboys next week, Bills Sunday Night Football, Bengals. I mean, there's just a lot of tougher matchups in this Raiders matchup. And shout out to the Raiders. Credit to them for the win for sure. I'm not saying that they don't deserve this win. I'm just saying the Ravens should have not been in this position. And we'll talk about the good things that the Raiders did as we get throughout this. But let's stick on this offensive line. We still got a rotation at right tackle. Patrick McCary starts the game, plays most of the game, and struggled, man. I mean, first play, Max Crosby right around him, no problem. Max Crosby was disruptive throughout this entire game, single-handedly game-wrecking. This is things we talked about before the game that just can't happen. Our biggest concern, Crosby and this Raiders D-line versus the Ravens O-line, came to life, man. It was an absolute nightmare. And especially the right side of that O-line. I mean, Falele's next to McCary over there. And I just really don't understand the right tackle rotation. McCary's not looking incredible. It's not like, oh, we have a really, really solid right tackle out there that we trust, and we're just going to ease Roger in. Roger came in right before the first half ended, had a couple really good reps against Max Crosby, one-on-one, by the way, and then just came out, didn't come back in until like 9 minutes left in the fourth. I mean, Roger Rosengarten's barely playing. So they obviously trust McCary a lot more, but I don't really see why. And McCary doesn't have upside. At least Roger has upside. Get him his game reps. He's going to get better and better and better. McCary is McCary, man. We know who McCary is. I think he should stay in that 6-man role. I think we need to put Roger at right tackle. Yes, there's going to be a couple bumps, but there's a lot of bumps with McCary. It's not like he's out there locking people down. So let's get Roger out there, get him his reps. I think we'll see a quicker progression from Roger Rosengarten as the weeks go. McCary's not going to get a ton better, and then we need to replace Falele. Whether that's a trade, whether that's Ben Cleveland, I mean, we need a right guard. This is crazy. We can't get any push in the run game. Elite rushers are just blowing through our line, getting Lamar rattled, and then Lamar's not making great throws. I know he missed that one wide open big play to Andrews in the first half because he was constantly under pressure for a couple plays. Finally gets a second and then sails it, which is on Lamar, but I'm telling you, it's all circumstantial because of that offensive line play. As a quarterback, when you're constantly needing to run for your life or feeling like there's pressure coming instantly, you're just going to play different. You're going to take off and want to run. You're going to want to scramble a little bit more to buy time. You might not be as completely accurate because you don't trust the pocket. And these are things that are going on. I don't think the pass protection is as big of a problem as the run game. The run blocking is atrocious. We're not, even when Henry was having success in that start of the second half, when he had that long drive and was busting some big runs, they weren't getting a lot of push. Week after week, this run game is going to continue to struggle. I don't really see it just blossoming out of nowhere. I think our pass protection is workable. I think it's okay. I think there's definitely something to build on there, but Falele ain't the guy. It ain't going to work out. It's not working out now. I don't know why they're sticking with him, and I'm not trying to bash Falele as an NFL player. This guy's a right tackle, This guy came in to be a right tackle. That's all he's played, and then we just move him to guard, and he's the starter, and it has never looked that good. I mean, let's be real. All preseason long, we're watching this, and we're like, ugh. I don't know if this is going to work. And then week 1 last week against the Chiefs, we're like, okay, that wasn't great. Let's see if it improves. No, it's just as bad. It's just as bad. We're not any better, and we're dropping games to teams that we shouldn't be dropping games to. Now we're 0-2 to start the season. And I know we're playing against another really talented D-line, but that should not be an excuse. We have to be able to handle that. I mean, you're just not going to be playing in February if you can't handle talented pass rushers. It's an absolute nightmare. Changes are needed yesterday. Moving over to the defense, I don't want to put this loss all on the defense by any means. They held their own for a long time. Pass rush was excellent. We'll touch on that later. But the secondary did struggle in that second half. Davante Adams was lighting us up over 100 yards. Brock Bowers was winning his matchups, it seemed like, every single time. They ate us up, man, no lie. In that second half, we couldn't stop anything. Now, the defense was tired. The offense was going 3 and out, had some penalties. And I get it. We've seen this meltdown a few times where the defense just can't stop anything late in the game. And shout out to Davante Adams. He's not an easy cover at all. He was kind of eating Brandon Stevens up quite a bit in that second half. And I get it. I mean, Brandon Stevens is solid. Davante Adams is one of the players of the decade. And he looked like it. But the defense does have to play better, especially late in the games. We had a 2-possession lead in this game, and then boom, tied up out of nowhere quick. And the Raiders were just marching down the field at will. Now, a couple terrible penalty calls for sure. The refs, once again, seem to always just be too involved in these Ravens games on our side for some reason. I know a lot of people use the refs as an excuse in games, but if you watch this game, you'll just see the refs are they're calling some soft stuff, in my opinion. I don't really understand why we are getting so heavily targeted by these refs, but started last week against the Chiefs. It's just like if we do anything wrong by a centimeter, they're calling it. They're not calling it on the other team. Like, there's 2 that stick out to me. I thought the Brandon Stevens pass interference against Davante Adams in the end zone was a bad call, or at least a soft call. If you slow it down, you're like, oh yeah, look, his hand's there. But like, it really didn't affect the play. That's just like tight physical coverage. And then the Matabike face mask sack that wasn't a face mask. There were definitely some questionable calls, as there are every game, but it seems to be stacking up a little bit. I don't think that that's a reason that we lost the game, but definitely something to point out. And another thing I want to touch on is John Harbaugh's decision-making with these challenges, and just the roster decision-making as well with the offensive line. I mean, Harbaugh's got to be held accountable here. And I'm one of the Harbaugh supporters, man. I'm not, a supporter till I die. Obviously, if something is egregious, I'm going to talk about it and call him out, which I feel like this is an example of that. These challenges today were terrible. I mean, maybe the second one with Davante Adams, it was just worth taking a stab at, but that first one where Zay Flowers dropped the ball, or the ball hit the ground before Zay caught it, was obvious. I mean, who's in John Harbaugh's ear, or what are they showing at the stadium where you can't see instantly that the ball hit the ground, and you should never challenge that? So I don't understand the challenges. I think Harbaugh needs to be held accountable for these decisions. I think that him sticking with this O-line, there has to be more going on behind the scenes with Ben Cleveland, because they don't want to go to him for whatever reason. If that's the case, then go make a trade. Eric DeCosta's got to make a trade tomorrow. We need a right guard. I mean, it's just no excuse to leave it the way it is. It's not going to work, man. We got Micah Parsons next week. You think it's going to get easier? It's just not going to get easier. And once again, it's just a story of self-inflicted wounds. And I think that some of that has to fall back on coaching. This team has been more disciplined in the past. And I don't want to just say that it's the players. We got a lot of talented players. It is the players' fault too. But Harbaugh's criticism, especially in this game and his recent challenge history stretch and the AFC Championship game, I mean, it's fair. The criticism's fair. Something has to change. Another negative before we start getting into the few positives from this game is Justin Tucker is 1 for 7 from his last 7 beyond 50. And obviously the miss today from 56 yards, I know that's not an easy field goal, but we used to rely on Tucker for these 50-plus yarders. It was automatic, you know what I mean? Like, now all of a sudden, he's awful from beyond 50, at least in his last group. I know it's a smaller sample size, but his last 7 kicks, he's 1 for 7, and we would have been going to overtime, that we lost by 3. So that field goal did matter. I'm not extremely concerned about Tucker's long distance kicking right now. I think it's too small of a sample size, but it's definitely something that I'm slightly concerned. I'm definitely watching out like, hey, is Tucker going to start to decline a little bit from distance? Because he is getting older and he's just in a little bit of a funk. I don't really know the technicality of what he's doing different with his kicks. I'm sure he could tell you what the reason is that he's missing each of these kicks. But I know that we've seen him make almost all of these in the past, and then now he's making almost none of them. So there is a change, and it did affect the game. Like I said, we would have been tied. We lost by 3. That field goal, he makes that field goal, it's 26-26. Going to overtime, who knows what happens. Let's shift over to a little bit of the positives from this game. If you're still watching and hanging on, I always like to end on a more optimistic note, even though this loss has me not optimistic at all. But I thought Derrick Henry looked solid in this game. He had some great runs. We saw the vintage stiff arm. He got in on the touchdown where we were in the Wildcat. Derrick Henry looked good. There wasn't a lot of push from the offensive line, especially in the first half. He was running into brick walls again. But in the second half, that first drive coming out of the half, I thought that was like a perfectly balanced drive, got Henry going. Henry, I thought, was just about to eat and run away with this game in the second half. I literally was like making YouTube titles like Derrick Henry dominates. I was like, he's going to go well over 100. He's cooking right now. And then just didn't happen. I'd like to still see a few more carries for Derrick Henry, but 18 is definitely an improvement over 13. Lamar obviously ran way less today. I'd like to see Derrick Henry maybe 3 to 5 more carries. That's nitpicking, though. I don't think that that's the reason we lost this game. We did try to establish the run. We did establish the run in that third quarter, but then we had a couple 3-and-outs, and the Raiders were just scoring on us, so the whole game flipped. We didn't have time we got the ball back to even run the ball. But I did think Derrick Henry was a shining spot in this game, as was Zay Flowers, 7 catches for 91 yards. Mark Andrews got a bit more involved today. He didn't have a crazy game, but Zay was pretty involved in that first half, had a great game. His connection with Lamar looked strong. And then on defense, we had a Odafe Oweh breakout game, 2.5 sacks. Kyle Van Noy in his return, 2 sacks. What a dog, man. Orbital fracture, back the next week, no problem, 2 sacks. I thought the pass rush was great. Also was great in Kansas City last week, so our pass rush looks strong, man. David Ajabo looks solid. Oweh's looking great right now. I've been hard on Oweh in the past, but I don't need to be right now. I think he's balling. I think he's doing everything that he needs to be doing, and today was just a shining moment for him. Justin Madubuike had a solid game. Travis Jones disrupting the interior play after play. He's the reason that some of those sacks happened. So shout out to him. Shout out to that whole Ravens D-line. They were putting the pressure. They were getting the sacks. The secondary was what let me down a little bit. We come in with such a stacked secondary, you assume that we're going to have an even better year than last year, essentially. And I know we were missing Nate Wiggins. I think he can lift this defense and add a lot of speed out there. But regardless, the secondary just didn't play great. There's probably still a million other things we could talk about from this game. I'll talk about different things and highlight different things throughout the week in some different episodes as we dive into some film and really dissect this. But this is a first reaction. I haven't even really watched the press conferences or anything. I just hopped on right after the game, wanted to give my initial thoughts, and they're not great. This is a bad loss, man. I don't like our schedule ahead with us playing like this. We need immediate changes. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. We beat ourselves, self-inflicted stuff. We're tired of hearing that. It can't happen. You know what I mean? Whatever needs changed to fix this needs to be changed immediately. And I think we should start with the right guard and then playing Roger Rosengarten at right tackle. I think that that's the first move. And I think Harbaugh's got to coach better, man. Seriously, he's got to make better decisions in the game, and then he's got to get these guys more locked in, whatever that takes. He obviously knows this team better than any of us. He's with them every single day. There's just no reason that we should be blowing 2-possession leads in the fourth quarter. Self-inflicted wounds, blah, blah, blah. I'm tired of hearing about it. Fix it. We can't just keep beating ourselves. That's the worst excuse in the world. Oh, we're a really talented team, but we just keep beating ourselves. Why? So hopefully this is a wake-up call. 0-2 is a nightmare start to this season. None of us expected this. And we got the Cowboys, who just got blown out by the Saints, coming up this Sunday. They got another game wrecker in Micah Parsons, so we better figure something out quick. And the Ravens are going to have to come out and play a lot better than they did today for all 4 quarters. You know, not just a quarter here and there or a good drive here and there. We need to play complementary football on both sides and sustain a hard-fought, high-effort, not self-inflicted wound game for 4 quarters. Can we do that? I guess we'll see next Sunday, but appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.